Tuna is one of the most common and widely found oily fish species in the world's oceans. Various types of tuna will be found in different climatic conditions, these oceans ranging from relatively cold freezing water to quite warm water conditions. You can almost guarantee there will be one type of the tuna species swimming in your local waters. Below is information on the best way to find and catch tuna. What tackle and techniques are needed to hook up and land this awesome-eating fish? Ways to catch tuna. The first and best way to finding and catch tuna is trolling with scented trolling lures. Then you have live baiting, jigging, spinning and fly casting, also alternative and sporting ways to hook up tuna. Locating tuna. Tuna searching is an art and skill that takes years to master. Most anglers go days, weeks and months without catching one, let alone seeing a tuna. Good crews will catch tuna every outing. There are a few tips and tricks to point you in the right direction of finding and catching tuna in the location you're game fishing. Locating tuna in our oceans can often be a difficult task. The reward comes when you've invested precious time and money into tuna fishing and the multitudes of available tackle, and you're standing there waiting with all lines in water, then all of a sudden every lure in your spread gets ripped off by the running tuna. This is what makes game fishing so addictive. Like all styles of hunting, the hunter needs to know the territory. In big game tuna fishing, understanding your environment is a must. What happens under the water is more important than above the water. Research is needed to know where reefs, artificial reefs and underwater rock formations. Further out to sea, charts will show seamounts or underwater mountains and canyons. Also knowing where your continental shelf starts and ends. Water moves around these underwater structures and provides food to tuna. Underwater deep sea chat for tuna fishing. Days before going tuna fishing, we always monitor the weather and tide patterns. The tide is dictated by the lunar or moon cycle. This sea movement helps pull food for tuna from the bottom of the ocean up to the surface. These are called upwells. Upwells contain food for tuna like cephalopods, clupades, arthropods, planktonic, tunicate and algae. Reading the sea to find tuna is a skill, and the best way to learn is from others, especially cold seagulls. Current lines and upwells are easy to spot. The hard concept to understand is the underwater rivers. These underwater rivers differ from the seawater around them. These sea rivers are a stream of water that have a different water temperature and a good place to find tuna. The correct water temperature is one of the most important factors in successfully finding tuna. Tuna, being one of the more temperature-sensitive fish in the sea, it's important to learn a lot about your tuna target and the natural environment. What water temperature your tuna likes to live in is a good place to start. An example of this is southern bluefin tuna, who like the cold, and dogtooth tuna like warmer waters, whereas skipjack tuna love almost all types of water. World sea temperature chart. Once out at sea, a good way to find tuna is to troll lures in a straight line out to sea. This is called a survey line. Keeping eyes open for birds and water temperature. Trolling lets you cover more ground, so it's easier to find the tuna. As you troll the survey line, take notes of temperature change when you see in the water and current lines. Running a survey line is very helpful when you first start out to sea tuna fishing. This is where you keep one course, weather permitting, looking for a water temperature and current lines. Also keep an eye on onboard sonar device for fish. When you come across changes, you can GPS plot these spots, and you can return to these same spots located in your GPS at a later time. Low light is also a good time for a tuna hookup. In our scent blazer chambers, we use LED lights and glow stick to attract more fish to the bite. This works well at sunrise and sunset, or when you have a low level of light. It can also be good for a cloudy or overcast day. Trolling lure with red LED light for tuna fishing. When rock fishing for tuna, the best location is just past the bubbling water. This is best when the tide is going out, and you can use a float or balloon to push your bait out further. Having the wind offshore is also a big help for pushing your bait out, and it's also safer. Most of the tuna found when rock fishing are small tuna types such as bonito. Another location to come across tuna is in the open water. When we hook up these tuna, there is no sight on the surface, nothing, no birds around and no changes in the water or water temperature. Just a bang of the ratchet, which sounds furiously, and we have hooked a small jellybean tuna. Most of the time it's on the long rigger. At Wild Planet, we believe the more people understand about how their tuna is caught, the better chance choices will be made that will help to ensure we have thriving ocean ecosystems in the years to come. Sustainable fishing methods, namely pole and line fishing, are critical to protecting our oceans and the variety of life they support. They also benefit fishing communities around the world by providing financial and nutritional sustenance. The world loves tuna, especially canned tuna. It's no wonder, after all it's a protein-packed, low-calorie seafood that provides essential EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids. Just how much the world loves tuna may be surprising. Americans eat about 1 billion pounds of canned and pouched tuna each year. The European Union and the US consume over 80% of the world's canned tuna. Tuna Trio. In light of how much tuna is consumed, it's imperative that responsible fishing practices are used so that the ocean ecosystem remains healthy and balanced, and so that there is enough tuna for our children and grandchildren. Unfortunately, overfishing and wasteful fishing methods plague the industry and are leading to a depletion of fish stocks and negative environmental impacts. One of the most effective ways to combat this is to educate and inspire consumers to choose sustainably sourced canned tuna. However, making this choice can be difficult given the myriad of confusing and sometimes misleading claims on packaging. The one way to be sure that a can of tuna adheres to the highest sustainability standards is to look for language that clearly states the tuna was pole and line caught. But what does that mean? How does pole and line tuna fishing work? Boat side. People often ask, what is line and pole tuna? The proper terminology, however, is pole and line, and with this sustainable fishing method, skilled fishermen from small fishing communities all around the world engage in a practice that has been handed down from one generation to the next. They stand on a boat and utilize one pole and one line, all with the intention of selectively catching tuna. When they locate a school of tuna, they will use bait to bring younger, migratory tuna to the surface of the water. They cast their line into the ocean and the fish are attracted to the feathered, barbless lure. When the tuna bites, the fishermen quickly pull the fish out of the water one at a time, onto the back of the boat, where it easily releases itself from the hook. This method targets only the intended tuna species. However, should an occasional unintended species or infant fish end up on the line, they are immediately tossed back into the water with a good chance of survival. Thus, the amount of bycatch, species unintentionally caught in the process of fishing a targeted catch, is minimized with the pole and line method. This is in stark contrast to the practices employed by large, industrial fishing organizations that utilize fish aggregating devices, FADs, that attract a wide variety of sea life to an area and then indiscriminately scoop them up in a purse seine net. Too often, bycatch turns into bycatch mortality discard, where the non-targeted fish are left to die and then tossed overboard as waste. The one fish at a time pole and line method is an age-old way of fishing. While it's not the cheapest, fastest or easiest way to catch tuna, it's without a doubt the most sustainable, using the least amount of gear, providing a livelihood for fishing communities around the world, and importantly, preserving the most amount of sea life. Using the pole and line method benefits our ocean habitat, our fishing communities, and our planet in a number of ways. It avoids overfishing. The UN estimates that the global fishing fleet is 5 times greater than it needs to be to catch a sustainable number of fish. In fact, a single trip of giant fishing boats can yield as much tuna as some Pacific Island states catch in a full year. It allows at-risk tuna species to thrive. Indiscriminate harvesting using FADs results in at-risk species being captured unintentionally. For example, Greenpeace Australia reports that conventional purse seine fishing with FADs may attempt to target skipjack tuna, but up to 20% of their catch consists of baby big eye and yellowfin tuna. It saves the lives of bycatch. Pole and line fishing is selective, not indiscriminate. By targeting tuna specifically, and releasing bycatch immediately, no dolphins, sharks, turtles, etc. are killed. Boat captain. It employs local fishermen. Instead of giant vessels traveling across the globe using sophisticated technology and fewer human beings, pole and line fishing employs local workers to catch the fish one by one. For generations, fishing communities have relied on the skills of their fishermen to feed their own families. One of the most commonly reported ocean pollutants is commercial fishing gear. According to plasticofbay.com, fishing lines, rope Pole and line is a fishing method used to catch tuna and other large pelagic, midwater, species one fish at a time. When a school of target fish is located, water is sprayed from the back of the fishing vessel and small bait fish, e.g. sardines, are scattered onto the surface of the water, creating the illusion of an active school of prey fish. This process, known as chumming, sends the target fish into a feeding frenzy during which they will bite anything they see. Fishers line up along the back of the boat, each with a handheld wooden or fiberglass pole with a short line and barbless hook attached. Once a fish is hooked, it is flicked up and over the head of the fisher and onto the deck. Pole and line fishing uses handheld or mechanically operated poles with baited hooks attached. This method targets naturally schooling fish which are attracted to the surface through use of lights or the scattering of bait. Trolling, a technique used to catch large game fish in upper waters, involves the boat slowly drawing a line of baited hooks or lures through the water. Handlining is a selective method and involves manually fishing with hooked lines. It is used in both the upper water layers as well as closer to the seabed. Hook and line methods tend to be used by relatively small inshore vessels. Habitat damage. These hook and line fishing methods do not come into contact with the seabed, so are not associated with damage to marine habitat. Bycatch of vulnerable species. Small-scale fishing with hooks and lines are not particularly associated with unintentional capture of vulnerable species. Discards. Hook and line fishing can be associated with capture of non-target fish and other marine life, but this is not ordinarily a significant problem. Pole and line, trolling and handlining from small vessels are some of the most selective forms of fishing gear. In contrast to large commercial fleets and trawling, smaller tuna fishing boats have the least impact on the environment. The pole and line fishing method allows fish to be selected. They do not come into contact with the seabed and therefore do not damage marine habitats. The most selective and sustainable method of fishing, it prevents the capture of endangered species. The number of unintentional catches with this method is practically zero, but thanks to the special hook, the fish is hardly damaged during the catch and can be returned to the water without any problems, even in the case of an unintentional catch. Not to mention the fact that this fishing method provides work and a living for many people. Commercial fishing employs a broad range of methods, only some of which are sustainable. The most sustainable methods have the smallest impact on other aquatic species and the environment. These include pole and line. An angler can quickly identify and release any unintended catch, spearfishing and harpooning, and trolling. Floating fish traps and weirs are also sustainable methods, because fish can enter traps without risking entanglement, which is an issue with nets. All these methods help minimize environmental damage and overfishing, as well as bycatch, which is the accidental harvest of non-target species, such as dolphins, turtles, and seabirds. At the other end of the spectrum are methods that take an enormous toll on sea life and ocean health. These include bottom trawling and dredging, both of which involve dragging weighted nets across the seafloor. These methods damage habitat, sweeping up everything in their wake, and they lead to substantial bycatch. Giant drift nets, which move with the current, also capture large numbers of non-target species. The same is true for miles-long lines with multiple baited hooks. These attract many species, so bycatch is significant. The following is a list of fishing methods that are sustainable, and some methods that are not. There have always been simple and eco-friendly methods for capturing fish. Some traditional approaches include cast nets, still used by subsistence fishers worldwide, and reef nets, used today by indigenous communities in areas like the US Pacific Northwest. Most commercial fishing is done using some of the following methods. To ensure what you're buying is sustainable, look for methods that limit overfishing, minimize bycatch of other species, and don't damage the environment. While no approach is foolproof, even the most sustainable method won't put fish back into overfished waters. There are some methods that produce less damage than others. Floating fish trap and weir fishing, nets held in place with floats and anchors that allow fish to enter a series of more restrictive areas without coming into direct contact with the net. They can then be either harvested or released without being injured or entangled. Pole and line fishing, fly fishing, jigging, and rod and reel fishing, use of a single rod with one hook baited to catch fish. An angler can quickly remove unwanted catches from the hook after capture, minimizing bycatch, environmental damage, and overfishing. Spearfishing, hand diving, and harpooning, spearfishing, using handheld spears, and harpooning, using barbed fibre and a gun, are traditional methods used for catching larger species, like swordfish. Hand diving is typically used for smaller species, like scallops, which are simply gathered by hand, allowing the fisher to leave younger fish out to keep developing. Bycatch is almost non-existent with these methods, since they all target individual fish. Trolling, a type of pole fishing in which an individual weighted line and single hook loaded with an artificial lure or live bait is towed from a moving boat. Bycatch, environmental damage, and overfishing are minimal in this method. Purse seining, a net, seine, with floats at the top and weights at the bottom is hung vertically in the water, encircling schooling fish, and a drawstring is pulled to trap them. While this method does not harm the seafloor, it can capture species indiscriminately, leading to high levels of bycatch of marine life like sea turtles, dolphins, and humpback whales. It can also lead to overfishing. Trawling, the Marine Conservation Institute calls trawling the world's most destructive type of fishing. A boat drags a weighted net behind it to catch fish or shrimp that live in, on, or just above the seafloor. Since over 98% of marine animal species live in this area, bycatch is heavy in this method. Trawling also damages the seabed, upsetting the balance of ocean ecosystems. Since the ocean is also one of the Earth's largest carbon sinks, disrupting the seafloor releases tons of carbon into the atmosphere. Dredging, a mesh bag is dragged along the seafloor to capture clams, scallops, and oysters. Like trawling, this method damages the seafloor and captures fish, sponges, and other marine life that tend not to survive capture. Drift net fishing, these long, mobile nets are placed in the water and drift with the current. They can capture a large amount of fish, leading to overfishing. They also generate a high amount of bycatch. Long lining, one very long central line, up to 50 miles in some cases, with hooks dangling from it is used to catch fish near the ocean surface or just off the ocean floor. Long lining attracts lots of species, so bycatch can